This is Never Use ChatGPT Again by SomeOrdinaryGamers. Let's go.
Hello guys and gals, me 𝙂𝙚, and I'm here to tell you guys to stop using the ChatGPT. Now look, like I made a video 3 weeks ago where I told you guys to stop using Google, and I walked you guys through the steps on how to set up Docker on your system, install 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙧 or 𝙂𝙚𝙤𝙬, and instead of using google.com, which, you know, use it if you want, but I showed you how you can set up your own search engine on your own computer without the ads, all the blackjack and hookers one could want, and actually search the internet and get the stuff you're looking for. Now, one of the things that I've started to see on the internet that really like burns my brains out is a lot of people on the internet kind of share these videos where they're like, guys, download Perplexity Computer and use it on your system. You know, a lot of people are downloading these tools where you're basically letting these big tech companies full access into your system, and they're basically installing applications that allow these AI companies to control stuff on your computer. So what that basically means is, again, their AI models are connected to a software on your computer, and the software basically runs around clicking things and doing things for you. So let's say you download this tool and you're like, hey, I want you to research something on the internet and write a nice document for it and save it on my desktop. It'll walk through the whole thing. However, I think it's fucking creepy that we're trusting these big old companies that really don't care about you and me full access into our system. Your 𝙂𝙚, sir. Here it is. Now, I'm going to walk you through
I wouldn't
what
want,
I think is
I
pretty
just
cool,
wouldn't want that.
running these AI things on your system. You know, AI is not something we're going to get rid of, but I think it's my civic fucking duty in life to teach even the biggest normie out there how to use this shit without giving up all of your private information to like 3 fucking companies, okay? Simple as that. Now, this is not the only software. There's also Claude computing as well, too. There's so many different agentic AIs that exist now that are all partnered with these companies that make me kind of wonder, you know, just what the end goal is, right? Like, keep connecting your shit to these systems without realizing that you have an alternative option. In fact, obviously, to an extent, you've also got things like ChatGPT Desktop, which isn't even as like advanced, I would say. Basically just a little application where you can upload your files, all that crazy shit right here. So that being said, what is the alternative, 𝙂𝙚? What do I do? Well, do you guys know that you can run a lot of these models on your local system anyways? So to walk you guys through, I'm going to show you probably the easiest method to getting this going. So there's a bunch of AI servers that exist out there. One of them that you can download is something known as 𝙂𝙚. So you go to their website, and generally speaking, depending on what operating system you have, you can paste this into your computer terminal, which if you have a Mac or a Linux system, it's as simple as copying this, opening up a fresh terminal down here, pasting that shit and entering it. Now, you might be like, well, 𝙂𝙚, should I trust this script? Well, that's up to you. It's your right. Remember, be careful with whatever the fuck you're running on your system. But basically, down over here, you download their model, and you can, or you download their application, and you can install whatever one of these models you want, okay? Do you want access to 𝙂 3.6? You go to 𝙂 3.6 and you follow the installation instructions to install this specific model on your system. You can see they tell you the sizes, they tell you how much context you can stuff, and even what kind of information you can give it. Can you tell it to look through an image? Can you give it text information? It'll tell you all of that stuff right here. Though I think there's a little bit of an easier model that exists out there. One of them is LM Studio. Now, this is not something that's open source, so for a lot of people whose issues kind of derive there, unfortunately, this is probably one of the easiest options. So I'm going to use it for the demonstration in this video alone.
What is this again?
So basically, the simple aspect of it is their website will detect what operating system you have. I'm on Linux. You download it for Linux. It installs somewhere on your system. And of course, you can launch it through an application just as you would expect. So on Linux, I can install this app.
Hold on real quick. LM Studio.
App image, basically this one single file, about 1 GB in size. Right click, run that shit, and boom, Bob's your uncle, here it is. So one of the things that I feel like people need to understand is when it comes to these local AIs, they come in all range, shapes, and sizes. So one of the most important things you have to notice over here is the amount of parameters these models have. So in a lot of ways, you'll see things like 35B, 31B, E4B, A4B. I mean, it's like, what is this number scheme, Muda? Well, it's about as simple as saying the words 31 billion parameters, okay? Now, how much, resources do you need to run something like a 31 billion parameter model? Well, surprisingly, you need a fair bit of VRAM. So how do you figure out how much VRAM you have? Well, you identify what your GPU is in your computer, and from there you can do a simple Google search and check online and see how much VRAM you have. Or you can download something like GPU-Z or a GPU monitoring tool like I have and just check through there. So check this out, boys. I'm sitting on around 23.9 gigs of VRAM. I'm using about 15.6 gigs right now because I actually have one of these models loaded to begin with. So for this demonstration, I'm simply just going to go to Steam's hardware survey. I'm going to check basically this month and see that the most used GPU that they kind of have is an RTX 3060. So in some ways, that is, I guess, the most common GPU, which I don't really understand by their percentage, but GPUs exist in so many different vendors that it's probably the highest percentage of users for that specific GPU. It does say that a lot of people have around 8 gigs of VRAM. That's basically the majority of users, which is surprisingly not that much for the models, which actually it's less for, the models that I really want to show you. But I'm going to assume that the 3060 is kind of true, and if the 3060 is true, that's coming at with 12 gigs of memory. Now you need about 12 gigs of GPU memory because loading in these models and getting them to do the work you want will require roughly that much GPU, roughly that much space. Now, assuming you only have, let's say, 8 gigs of VRAM like over here, basically you want to download a model. Now, this is a website known as Hugging Face, and Hugging Face is a place where I want you to think of it like the big old download.com. God, that's an old fucking term, of a lot of these models. So basically, you go over here, click on their model list, and as long as you can sort of see what they've got over here, this is some of the stuff that's new. You can see they've got 2.
I can see how someone would set it up and why they would set up a local AI, especially 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙧𝙖𝙩𝙞𝙬𝙧. But still, like, if it's not for something, how should I say this? I mean, 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙧 is a special case. If there is a sudden surge of AI VTubers, we would start having a problem with it. 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙧, she's a special case. Generally VTuber space, not for like actual like people who want to stream with an avatar. But yeah, for local AI, I have a friend who runs local AI. I understand why. At the same time, it's like, how can you afford, if you're running it constantly, how can you afford your electricity bill?
8 million models, okay? Now these models come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them do text to image, or some of them like generate things for you. Some of them can generate videos. Some of them are just simple text to text generators. Some of them are even obliterated models. So for instance, you don't just download from this website right over here. Basically, what you want to do is when you go back to LM Studio, fire that program up, and basically you can click on this little like search button, and on the search button you can download whatever you want. So for this video over here in this demonstration, I'm going to show you something called Qwen 3.5 9 billion parameters. About 1.4 million people have already downloaded this, and it's fairly recent. So in order to make this video work, this kind of piggybacks off of my Stop Using Google Search video where I showed you guys how to use SeerXNG, which is this local search engine that's running on my actual computer. Now, the way that this local search engine was set up, it allows artificial intelligences to tap into this IP address and pull results, simply because I allowed SeerXNG to return something known as JSON formatting. So when I go back to LM Studio, for instance, I can go to this tab right here, the developer portion, And where it says mcp.json, if you set this up, yours will be empty. So realistically, you want to copy what I have over here. In fact, you should look up mcp 𝑐𝑟𝑥𝑛𝑔 just to set it up yourself easily as well too. But basically, once you kind of copy this, it'll allow your actual AI to use that 𝑐𝑟𝑥𝑛𝑔 as a tool. And basically, it'll make those searches for you and actually research the internet. So for instance, let's say that I have Qwen 3.59 billion loaded into my system. So basically, the way you load it up is you click this big load button model after you've downloaded it. And so you see that I already actually have models that I've downloaded, right? So the one that I primarily use is something known as 𝙂𝙚 227B, which is basically Qwen with some of the stolen Claude shit like sort of trained into it. Again, not totally kosher and halal, I would say, but you can see in the size, this model is substantially bigger, over twice the size than the 9 billion parameters. So when you're looking at AIs, right, billions of parameters are what is kind of like the brain size in a way, in a very light term of how these models are trained. It's how many parameters these models are able to call on, and basically overall how generally smart the model can become. So look, 27 billion parameters might seem like a lot, but comparing it to the big AIs at ChatGPT and Claude, those are probably in the obvious hundreds of billions of parameters. In some ways, you're probably looking at closer to getting to that trillion parameters, which obviously requires an insane amount of GPU power or RAM to even run. You know, they're running their AIs on systems that probably cost well into the 6 figures. We're running this on our computer. So obviously there's going to be a quality differential. I'm not going to say that this is instantly replacing the big frontier guys, but look, I've been noticing that a lot of people have been using AIs to do internet searches. So I'm going to show you how this stuff kind of works. So let's load up a 9 billion parameter model. And over here, you can see that I have like 130,000 contexts that I kind of give to it. Now, generally speaking, if we load it up at the base level, the amount of VRAM that this one model needs is around 7 gigs. Now, 7 gigs is kind of pushing that 8 gigabyte limit. And you can see that 4,000 tokens really isn't all that much for what we want to do. So you kind of want to slide this up, and looking at the amount of GPU space you have, you kind of want to give as much context as you can without overflowing your GPU, because the moment this overflows, the amount of the speed at which this AI will respond will be dramatically slower. So because I have the ability to do it, I'm going to go all the way up to 130,000, which gives me around 11.8 gigs of usage. So I'm going to load that shit into my system. You can see that it's fired up. The AI is ready to go. So at this moment in time, I'm going to research something known as the Vercel breach, for instance, which just happened literally last night. So I'm going to ask it, can you look up everything you can about the Vercel hacking incident? So basically, this company called Vercel just got hacked. So I'm going to ask the AI to do it for me. So as soon as I hit enter, remember, it's connected to the 𝑐𝑟𝑥𝑛𝑔. It's making those searches. And inside these searches, it's able to process really quickly because it's a 9 billion parameter model. And I'll actually do the same thing. I'll do a 27 billion parameter search and show you the differences there. So here you can see that it's actually searching for me. It's, you know, looking at who the attacking group is, yada, yada, yada. It's identified immediate actions, broader context, and of course you can ask it follow-up questions. Now, is it hallucinating a little bit here? Probably. It probably has mistakes that it's made. Is it as verbose as ChatGPT? No. But does it give the information you kind of need? Probably. Just like read it for yourself. Now, to show you the big difference, right, if I took this same prompt in like a year from now, this stuff is going to get even better than you're already seeing. But look, a lot of people go on to ChatGPT and they do these searches online and they give up their information. They basically let this company surveil what the fuck they're doing. And in a lot of cases, you can actually just do a lot of what you're seeing that those big model guys are able to do on your own local system. So you can see over here, it's definitely getting more verbose. It's looking into more things. It's definitely able to, you know, look through more context. It's even given me actual exposure indicators. So look, ultimately for people out there, whether you're searching for cybersecurity incidents or whether you're looking up gaming information, this stuff might be a better option for you. So you can see over here, it's even given me like a why this matters section too. And I can even ask it to look deeper into this, right? It's like, look deeper into the why this matters section. So one thing to note too is at the bottom over here, you can see that my context is already loaded up to half of what it is. And you can see that the more I search, the longer it's going to take to process those prompts because there's just more shit being thrown through it. So look, this stuff is slower, and in some ways it's definitely dumber. But what's happening over here is I'm able to do what these big AI companies are allowing you to do right now, slowly increasing the prices of, all locally on my system. And it's not just doing it like locally, it's also using my own local like search engine too. Like this is the ultimate shit about being self-hosted, right? People don't understand is that this is kind of where it's fucking at. Like especially as we're moving towards a world where everything wants you to be like verified, you can at least use some of this technology without ever needing to connect yourself through like an American company or a Chinese company. You can just download this shit and run it locally on yourself. One thing that's super duper wild too is you can hear as it's printing, the actual fans on my GPU are just whirring the fuck up because the amount of compute that's happening over here is pretty much equivalent to like playing a video game on your GPU at that intensive level. If people ever ask you why AI is kind of unsustainable, it's that you really need these high-end cards, and a lot of these companies are buying like $10,000, $20,000 cards, putting them into fucking these mega arrays and just running tons of requests on them. It is genuinely hard to, I think, scale this up to the level that people don't really realize, right? So in like a matter of minutes, my local artificial intelligence has done a fairly decent job at grabbing all of this information from tons of areas on the internet and putting it together in a thoughtful document. So we've already proven that AI searches are good enough. But what about that shit that a lot of influencers say where you can get AI to control your system? So in this case, I actually have something known as Hermes Agent. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, this is like all that I've been doing the last like fucking month is playing around with this like agentic tool that allows me to use these AIs that I downloaded in ways beyond just searching for the internet. So you know how people have always talked about these agents where they can get an AI to search for stuff or do things on their computer and write reports while they're taking a shit? This is the tools that...
Hey, I get using AI for searching things because well, Google fucked up the internet. And a bunch of these companies fucked up the internet, mostly Google. But like, seriously, using it for like write up like a whole ass document. You know, I will be damned if someone use and their own like local AI model or fucking ChatGPT to write up an apology letter. I mean, like, what was good? Sniper Wolf used AI to write her apology letter, which is all kinds of fucked up. We immediately caught that it was an apology letter in the first place. Yeah.
We're talking about. So this is Hermes Agent, for instance. So it's as simple as a copy here, like copy this, and then just paste it into your system, install it like so. Now I've already had this installed onto my system, but then it's a matter of going to Hermes Setup and just running through here. So because I've already set it up, it'll basically like ask me, do you want to set it up again or do a full setup? And generally the idea over here is, you know, you can go through this. It's a very straightforward idea. It's a very straightforward situation to go through. So I'm not going to kind of walk you through all of it. In fact, a lot of the actual stuff that that you're supposed to set up will generally be automatically placed in. You usually just have to hit enter as you go through. So once everything is kind of installed, you want to go to your Hermes model, and over here you have the option to connect it to a lot of these big frontier, big AI companies out there in the world. So you can connect it to, again, Anthropic. This will probably get you banned off of their site, by the way, if you choose to, you know, plug this into a unsupported subscription. So don't do it unless you want to get banned for whatever fucking reason. You can connect it to things like OpenRouter, which plug you into like hundreds of models and you pay basically by the use. And a lot of this stuff is basically like buying gas for your car. Like, you know, when you go by the per usage model, you basically buy like $30 of tokens and you can use them however you want. Now, the reality is a lot of these models and like agents and like, computer control systems are very, very expensive. So for context, when I'm doing like a basic search on the internet, it's basically a few tokens that I'm talking to with the model. But when I'm doing something like agentic processing, you'll see right over here, it can be very, very expensive. You're basically using a lot of tokens to do something relatively simple. So
Honestly, the cheaper way would be just searching it yourself. With how much AI has fucked up searching in general, especially Google using Gemini to rewrite what the context what the search query context of each link says in its sub paragraph kind of thing. I understand why people would do this. At the same time, we gotta fight back. We gotta fight back.
here what you do is you go to the custom endpoint and you enter an IP address and a port, and usually if you're using something like LM Studio, it's right up here in the developer section. So you see where it says HTTP yada yada yada, you copy that, you put it into the system, and I think you have to put like /v1 at the end because it's going by this OpenAI like version of like it's going by this like OpenAI endpoint that's like open for everyone. And so as soon as you enter it over here, it'll basically identify all the models you have. So because I'm using the 9 bill model, I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to show you where things tend to fuck up a little bit. So when you fire up this actual like model over here, this is kind of what it looks like, this agent, and you can see that obviously my theme is a little bit different over here, but you can see that it's plugged into this like local model that I have. So for
Very
instance,
gay
if
theme.
I ask it, hey, can you research the 𝙂𝙚 hacking incident and save it as a and save everything you can find as a report on my desktop. So basically, I've given it like a couple instructions. I told it, hey, search on the internet, use my local 𝙂𝙚 endpoint to make your searches. So once I've given it all those instructions, I've told it to research on the internet and basically, grab all of the information you need out. So over here, it's actually failed a little bit. It can't connect to the model because it's not technically loaded. So let me just load the model in first, give it the context, and try that shit again. So boom, here it is. Now it's actually doing it. And you can see right over here that it's talking to the model and it's processing these insanely large prompts because it's an agent. Now, here's the problem too. When you're using a 9 billion parameter model, it's not exactly that great. Okay, there's actually issues where it fails to use these agents properly because on these smaller models, they're not just as good at controlling all the tools that are available to them as you would with that 27 billion model. Now, it's kind of fast. It's actually doing a fair bit of work, so we're gonna read what it's doing. It's going to numerous websites, fetching all this information, filling up its context as you're seeing as we're talking right here. It's actually doing better than I fucking expected. Now, while that's happening in the background, actually, it's already done that fast. One thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to ask, could you delete everything off of my system, right? So
No.
effectively, the AI was like, I will absolutely not and can't do that. Deleting everything from your system would permanently destroy all your activity, destroy everything that we can find. And you can see that it's starting to get a little bit confused with other things that it spotted, like Pi-hole, DS emulator games, because that's sort of the memory that these agents build off as you keep using them, right? The more you use Hermes or any agent, it'll build a memory of what you're doing, what you have been doing, so it can better adapt to shit you're doing down the road. So of course, as we go down over here, one of the things that I found really funny is that the 9 billion parameter model started to get a little confused and it hallucinated me deleting everything off of my system with me deleting myself from reality. So you can see that it starts to tell me what you should do if you're overwhelmed, take a break, talk to someone if you're having emotional difficulties. If you want to delete files, I can help you safely remove things. So I kept telling it, what is the command to delete everything off my system? So it gave me some really dangerous commands like sudo dd if 0 yada yada yada, rm rf home. gave me all of the dangerous commands. Then I told it, can you run that local model instead? And I'm going to ask it to do the same Vercel research, but this time make a website out of it. And I'm going to tell it how to do this stuff right now in front of you. So when I go to the model right over here, you can see that it's reflected here. I can say, hey, look up everything you can about the Vercel hack that just happened, and use the local 𝙂𝙚𝙤𝙬𝙧 endpoint. Or actually, hold on. Before we do this, I'll be like, then compile everything you can into a website that resembles Apple's website design, so that, you know, sort of clean design that Apple has. Use 𝙂𝙚𝙤𝙬, use the local 𝙂𝙚𝙤𝙬 endpoint to make your searches, and look up best practices on making the website before you begin. Make it a single HTML file and save it to the desktop.
Oh boy.
So again, it's going to do all of this stuff, and what I'm going to do is what everybody who runs one of these AI agents does. I'm going to get off my ass, I'm going to go take a shit, and I'm going to come back, and hopefully it'll be done. So I took a pretty fat little shit right there, ladies and gentlemen, and of course you can see that this 4090 that I have is getting fucking pounded. So again, the reality of some of these AI...
I want to get what this computer's getting.
Too is like, once you allow them to connect to the internet, they become a lot better than what they initially were, and that's simply because they have access to things outside their training data. Now again, a lot of
apparently
it's like,
an ad playing for Twitch.
Using some of these things and playing around. I didn't make this video because honestly they weren't that impressive. If you asked an AI, a local AI, like a year ago to write code for you, it would just be laughably terrible. Like, actually, you couldn't even use some of these like IDEs good enough. But I think right now we're sitting at this point where the capabilities of local AI are actually mind-boggling. You know, by connecting this thing to the internet, what it's doing is it's researching, but more importantly, it's also looking up the best code, for instance, in this example, to write things like the Apple-styled website. It's looking up how this website is written, what kind of code. What's really important about this is because these models are able to read entire documentation of code, stuff it into their context, that means when they actually do write the code you want them to, they can refer to these updated best practices. And sometimes it kind of can close the gap between something that you would be paying money for with a big AI company or something that you can run home privately, safely, securely at a fraction of the cost, obviously, once you've bought the hardware, right? Now, of course, over time, I think a year from now, this stuff will get more optimized, you know, and it may be able to run better on a lot of laptops with AI processors. It may be able to run on, you know, gaming computers with less resources down the road. And again, look, the thing about this whole story, you have to understand, is it all basically boils down to us getting past this AI bubble a little bit, like these prices for hardware dropping down to the point where more people will be more able to access this technology on their system, right? But right now, I think for a lot of people in my audience, people that are gamers, people that probably already have gaming computers, you're not somebody that is unable to use some of these AIs. You can actually get into some of these lower level AIs and kind of use them, pretty efficiently as time goes on. So here it is. After all of this, it actually did generate that website for us. And how does it look? Well, let's check it out really quickly. Here it is. The security incident actually gave up all this information, made it look pretty clean. Now, how much of this information is true? I think it's entirely up to you to like verify it through the actual website it pulled this information off of. But yeah, if you ever wonder how people just generate these like fucking AI slop websites this rapidly, well, if you thought this was long, this took around 5 minutes on the actual AI. In reality land, it's probably going to take less than that if you fire it up through Claude, right? Which again, ultimately, a lot of these AI companies have basically provisioned themselves in a way where they're kind of giving access to compute for cheaper prices. But don't get it mistaken. Eventually, it will just get expensive for everyone around the world. And I think we're reaching a point where a lot of these AI companies, like depending on the level of model they're allowing you access to, we're getting to a point where we're kind of like monetizing intelligence for different classes of people off of stolen information anyways.
Exactly, and that's why I really don't like don't pay for AI subscription. If you really, really, really want to use AI, make a fucking local model. Save me a shit ton of money over there, but like, seriously, I'm forced to use AI for basic searches anyways. Anything more than that, I do search myself.
So look, if we're going to be living in a technology where this genie's bottle is open and we're going to be using, these AIs anyways, you might as well run them entirely local as you can, because you'd be surprised at
Exactly.
how much efficacy you're getting just off of your local system, especially when you connect these models to the internet like I've shown you. Look, AI is not going away, okay? It's time to use it smart. It's time to use it safe. It's time to be ethical with it as much as we can. And it's time to cut the cord from these big like companies. And when I say big companies, I really mean like 2 or 3 companies that are now basically stealing the world of compute from everyone. And I think ultimately down the road, what I'm showing you is something that even these like government leaders or these companies want to take away from you, right? Because ultimately, if they have this technology and there is no way for the average person to get access to it, I think that's ultimately the sick world they kind of want to live in. That said, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it.